morning and welcome to the Wilds Homeschool Chapel. I'm Joe.
And I'm Joe as well.
That's right. We're here, thrilled to have you guys here with us for the Wilds Homeschool Chapel, where we share the truth of God with the love of God so that your lives can be changed to the glory of God. That's right. We got Joe Fant here with us today, and I'm so excited to have him. He's one of our speakers this summer. He is a familiar face around the Wilds. And so, Joe, I know that you were at the Wilds for several years. Tell us a little bit about yourself so everyone can get to know you.
Yeah, so I worked at the Wilds, the other location down in North Carolina for a little over 6 years, right at 6 years, and so thankful for what God did in my heart. I love speaking to teens. I love hanging out with teenagers. I spent my life down there for that time and still have a huge heart for that. God moved us up. We now live in South Bend, Indiana, and pastoring a church up here. But the Wilds hold such a special place in my heart. In fact, I was called to the ministry at the Wilds. I met my wife at the Wilds, and so just an amazing testimony and everything that this camp has in our lives. Man, I'm so pumped about being back this summer.
Well, and that's awesome. We are too. We're so glad that you get to come back. And July 7th, all right, that's the week you're coming, right? And
that is the week. Now, that's just one day. There are more days than just July 7th, Joe.
Well, July 7th to the 12th, I can't
all
remember
the way
the exact
through.
week.
Is it the 14th? It's
No,
not the 14th. That'd be a full week. That would be fun.
Yeah, well.
But I think it's 7th through the 12th. Yeah.
Some of you guys, some of our listeners might actually be coming that week of camp.
That'd be awesome.
I can't wait. And so we're looking
And
forward
if you're
to it.
watching and you're coming that week, you need to come tell me that you saw this. And we can chat about it. We'll hang out in the sweet shop or something. That'd be great.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming up quick, man. I mean, we've got camp is getting ready. We were just talking before about all the stuff that happens in these last and few final days before camp happens, and there's a lot of
there is.
activity. And I can hear the mowers going. The grass is growing like crazy right now. I mean, everything is green. We're ready to go, and so looking forward. We just got to get some campers here, right?
What is camp without campers, Joe?
I don't know. It's nothing. Okay.
It's nothing. It's totally boring.
Hey, Joe, last week I told them that you were coming on, and we have a question for you, specifically for you. Are you ready for it?
All right.
Okay.
Hey,
so
bring it. Let's do it.
Zach and Ty, they're from the Dominican Republic, okay?
Oh, nice.
They asked, they put a little @ sign next to your name, @JoeFant. They said, have you ever been on a missions trip? And where have you been? Oh, man.
Yes, I have been on several mission trips. So I went on actually to Costa Rica as a senior in high school, went on an awesome mission trip with my parents to do my dad was speaking at a families conference. So I went and had some time to speak to the teenagers and hang out. That was an awesome mission trip, went down there with a missionary. And then I actually traveled with my father-in-law, who was an evangelist, for a year. And we had the opportunity to do a lot of stuff overseas. When I was in college, before I got married, I went to Guyana, South America on a mission trip, on a medical mission trip. And then with my father-in-law, man, I went to China and India, Japan, been on a lot of mission trips and absolutely love it. Really, really thankful for our missionaries and what they do overseas. And always excited to plug in and see how we can help them in their church planting endeavors and whatever they're doing to bring the gospel to bear in their cultures. So yeah, mission trips are great.
And as you could probably pick up, we have people even from different countries that listen to Homeschool Chapels,
awesome.
Because they're probably homeschooled on the mission field. And so, I mean, even Zach and Ty, and then we also had Lydia from Canada. She was also asking about traveling. Have you ever traveled to Hawaii?
Ooh, I have never been to Hawaii.
You're missing out. out.
Oh, I know. I want to go really badly. In fact, I think it'd be cool if the Wilds had a Wilds of Hawaii.
There you go.
Don't you think, Joe? Maybe that's the next one.
That I will volunteer to go and run that camp. Maybe we could run that one in the winter. Because,
that's a great idea.
We closed down over here. What do you guys think? Write in, let us know if you want the Wilds of Hawaii that only runs, from December to, say, April. Okay,
that would be awesome.
There you go. Escape the snow.
Would be awesome.
And
So no, I've never been to Hawaii. Always wanted to go. Maybe one day we'll go, but
Yeah.
never been there.
I'll put you on our
Yeah,
speaker schedule whenever we get the wilds of Hawaii. There you go.
let's do it. I'll be there.
Well, hey Joe, why don't you just share? I don't know if you have a challenge, and
Yeah,
just share your heart for the
sure.
teens this morning. Love for you
Yeah.
to challenge them.
So let me share with you my heart just a little bit. In fact, my wife and I have been talking about this concept. And let me first to let you know that I was homeschooled and really, really loved it. Wish that we had chapel like this available when I was homeschooled all through high school. But one thing that was interesting, so I've got four brothers and sisters, and I'm sure that none of you struggle with this at all when you're homeschooled. But when you have multiple siblings all being homeschooled together, there is a possibility of quarreling and fighting. And I'm sure, Joe, I'm sure none of anybody who's watching this video would ever struggle with that in their homes.
Never, never.
But but what obviously I did. Now it wasn't my fault. It was always my siblings' fault that we argued. But my question was, okay, how do you deal with that? How do you start dealing with that? And so I'd just like to say something really quickly that I think hopefully would be applicable to the students here. I want to read James chapter 4 and verse 1. Here's what it says. From whence or from where do come wars and fightings among you? Come they not in this way? Come they not hence? Even your lusts that war in your members. Here's that verse says. Where do arguments and fightings come from? Don't they come from the fact that we are at war in our hearts? My wife and I were talking about this, and she said it this way. She said, every external fight is actually a reflection of an internal battle. And so this word lust means desire. So here's what we say at our house. You are currently fighting, or we are currently fighting with my siblings at home or whatever, because I want what I want. When I want what I want, it causes so much strife and contention. So my responsibility is to act like Philippians chapter 2, and that is, don't look only to my own interests, but also to the interests of others. And that's what Philippians chapter 2 says. And so my desire for you, for the kids that are watching, maybe sometime today, if you get into an argument with someone in your home, if you get in an argument with your sibling, your brother or your sister, which I'm sure you guys probably never do, but if that were to ever happen, I want you to take a step back and I want you to ask the question, what do I want? And in that moment, you'll see that when you are consumed with your own wants, that you will automatically argue because somebody else is going to have what you want, or you're not going to be able to do what you want, or the weather's not going to be what you want, or the schedule's not going to be what you want. But when you can pivot that and say that I care more about what you want than what I want, it's amazing how it solves quarreling, how it solves fighting when we are focused on other people. The Wilds would say it this way: servant mindedness, right? Caring more about other people than caring about yourself. And so maybe James chapter 4 and verse 1 could help you in your relationships with your siblings, as you realize, listen, I need to be more concerned with what others want than what I want. And when that happens, it's gonna help me in my fightings and my arguings and my quarrelings. That when your sibling looks at you and says, "No, that's mine," all you have to say is, "You know what? You're right." Or, "I want that." Okay, well, you can have that. Rather than continuing that struggle of saying, "I want what I want," turning and saying, "Listen, I'm concerned about what you're concerned about as well." So maybe that'll help. Just a little thought from James chapter 4 that's kind of been on the hearts in our home recently, and maybe can be a blessing for you as well.
Amen. Hey, thanks so much. You know, I up here in New England, we have this feeling that we get even during the winters. We call it getting stir crazy. You know, when it's
Yes.
too cold to go
Oh,
outside,
yes.
or maybe it's too muddy to play out. You know, out in
Hmm.
it sounds like cat in the hat. And so, but we get stir crazy, and that's when those contentions are most fierce. That's when they're
Yep.
loudest. That's when they really pop up a lot more.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so we
Yep.
get it.
We have the same thing. I totally understand. And that's when you're saying, okay, I want to go outside, but God hasn't ordained the weather to allow me to do that.
Yeah.
And so let me look up and focus on what someone else desires, what someone else wants, and bring peace that way.
Well, hey, Joe, I'm going to let you slip off. I know you got some other things to do, but I'm so thankful that you
Hey,
got
we'll
to
see you
challenge
soon.
us today. And we'll see you, very, very
Yeah.
soon. All
And
right.
if you're if you're watching this and you're coming my week, I look forward to seeing you. Looking forward to spending that time with you this week, and may God do a great work in your chapel today.
Amen. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks,
Bye.
Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
See you, Joe.
Sounds great. All right. Bye. All right. The rest of us. Here we go. Let's shift on over. And we're going to grab our Bibles. And we're going to go to the beginning. I want you to turn in your Bibles to Genesis. And we're going to be looking at a passage here today as we consider loneliness. Loneliness. You know, in our questions last week, I asked the question, how many of you are experiencing the pain of loneliness in your life? It was interesting. Some of you said, no, I'm not feeling any loneliness. And there's about 50% of you that said, actually, yes, I am. Or you say occasionally, yes, I experience loneliness. 50-50. And I would say that might be pretty consistent with a lot of people in the world. Some feel lonely, some don't. They don't really, they might feel, they might don't. And then I asked the question, what are some of the things that you've tried to do to escape that feeling of loneliness? And I think some of you kind of know the answer to the question, and you even answered it correctly according to what the Bible would say for us to do. And Zach and Ty, you mentioned praying or even trying to go to church and trying to make good friends there and having the fellowship around the church. That's great. Lydia mentioned praying with a lot of the praying emojis. Great. Some people mentioned running to social media. I mean, this is the honest response for some when they say, yeah, I go to social media. When I'm lonely, I listen to music, maybe sports, running, all these different things, art, you know. One of you mentioned doom scrolling. And you said that your parents actually, they said no more doom scrolling, and still you enjoy that pleasure, the hit that you get from scrolling to another video. Or maybe playing a video game and everything is fake and calm, you said. It was interesting how you even worded that. But it's a place to leave reality when you're lonely and you leave people on the outside. You know, you guys were very honest and even open with what you run to, what you escape to conquer those feelings. Josie just talked about keeping your mind busy with hobbies, and a lot of us do that. Mercy mentions that she reads her Bible every day, and that's awesome. Olivia, you try not to ignore it, but it doesn't. You try to ignore it, but it doesn't go away. Guys, I want to say that this is not easy, and I think a lot of the struggles we have with loneliness, we need God's help to deal with them. Well, let's get into our lesson. If we have some time at the end, or maybe next week, I want to answer some of your other questions. I know a lot of you guys asked a bunch of other silly questions, but maybe we'll have some more time a little bit later. But for now, let's go to Genesis. In the book of Genesis, this is where we can get to the heart of loneliness. And once again, if you remember, we're looking at the study, Help, I'm Lonely. This is the book study that we've been going through. It's a Lifeline for Teens mini book. And so if you haven't picked one of those up and you want to follow along, these could be a really helpful thing to guide you in this study about loneliness. But as we consider this book, chapter 2, the second lesson here, what is it talking about when it says the heart of loneliness? I do want to admit that as we unpack this in the book, there's some key things that we have to understand. There are 3 different illustrations that we started with in the book. 3 different teenagers that we were kind of using as an illustration. And when Matt Collier writes this book, he draws a picture of a girl, or he illustrates with the story of a girl. And this one girl's name is Madison. You can picture her scrolling through her phone. She's sitting there in her room, kind of doom scrolling, as we kind of mentioned before. There's a connection with online friends and still feeling empty. And the book puts it this way. It says, despite spending hours on social media, she feels even lonelier and more isolated than ever. She's chasing something that she can't quite name. She's dropped out of cheerleading and sometimes just doesn't even, she just stays in bed all day long. There's another illustration of a guy named Michael. At school and in youth group, he is the life of the party. Everyone thinks he's got it together. But at home, he hides in his room, barely even talking to his family. And the description of him is that his friendly facade, that's his face, his friendly facade hides a surprising secret, that he doesn't feel close to anyone. He doesn't feel close to anyone at home or at church or at school. He's surrounded by people, but he feels alone. He's lacking that deep connection. And a third teenager that we'll illustrate with, a girl named Monica. Monica's got a tough home life, and with her parents who fought so much, and that when they actually finally gave up with a divorce, it actually felt like a relief for Monica. She acts tough, like nothing bothers her, but at night when it's quiet, the silence seems to press down heavy on her. She just feels so alone. As we consider these different people, maybe you might even consider yourself part of one of these stories. Maybe yours is similar. What's the common thread? I mean, they all look lonely. They all feel lonely at different times, but their lives look really different. They're craving connection. And that's where our lesson starts. It starts with the need for connection. In Genesis, we mentioned Genesis chapter 1. Genesis 1, this is the very beginning of the Bible, and this is where we can see the need for connection, the need for belonging. I think this is interesting because even God himself shows us that he is a relational being. He's a relational God. You might try to imagine what it was like before creation. And you know that there was a time before there was anything created, before angels or anything else. And even in the very beginning, God was relational. How do we know that? Well, even within the Trinity, think of this. In Genesis 1:1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And now the earth was formless and void, darkness over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Here's the Spirit in the Trinity. And then read on in verse 3, it says, "And God said," and many people actually take from that the point about God's speaking creation into existence and make the connection with John 1. Okay, John 1 says that the Word was God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And that Word, that Jesus himself, the Son of God, was involved in creation. He was the agent of creation. So now you have the Spirit, you have the Son, and you have God the Father being involved in creation. God is a relational being, even in the Trinity. And here in Genesis 1, people enter the scene. Creation, animals, all these things, they enter in as God makes them. But when he makes man, in verse 26, Genesis 1:26 says, "And God said, let us make man in our own image." Now, I'm putting all the emphasis on those different words, but in our likeness. What does that show? God is not alone in creation. He is the Trinity. He is creating even man in this image. And with the image of God, it's showing that he's creating us with the ability to have relationships. He doesn't create us to be islands by ourselves and be completely alone. Now, this is not to say that God has never been lonely himself. Even we're going to see with the life of Jesus, he was alone at times. But he created people because he wanted to share life with us. He wanted to share life. It's all about relationships with God. And he didn't create us because he was lonely, but because he wanted to share life with us. The book points out, and it says it this way, out of everything that God created, only people can form deep and meaningful relationships because we humans, are made in God's image. That's in Genesis 1:27. So here's the kicker. Even in a perfect world, like before there was sin, that is, even in the perfect world, when God first created it, loneliness still showed up. So loneliness happened before the fall. Okay? Here's where we're seeing this. In Genesis 2, verse 18, when God says, he makes man in his image, he makes Adam. Adam, he goes through this whole process of even naming the animals and all this, and it says that God says, it is not good that man should be alone. Again, I'm emphasizing this word alone. It's not good that man should be alone. And I will make him a help meet for him. So think about that. Adam was in paradise. No sin, no problems, the most beautiful garden that you could imagine, probably the best food you could ever imagine, okay? The tastiest fruits and everything in the world. And so here's Adam in this paradise, no sin, no problems, and God still said that being alone was not okay. Why? Because we are wired for connection. We are created as relational beings. And the book says, at the heart of loneliness is this deep desire for belonging. So that ache that you feel, it's not a flaw. It's actually part of how God made you. I mean, that should change your whole perspective on the thing. I'm feeling lonely. So we've been created for relationships. Do you ever feel like you're on the outside, kind of looking in? Like maybe you just don't fit in with other groups. Maybe it's at your church youth group, or maybe you notice that other people are sporty. You know, they're the jocks, they're the brainiacs, or maybe the skater crowd. You know, I sometimes walk up to the skate park and I'm like, I feel like I'm not one of them. Okay, and that's fine. Or maybe a lot of the people in your groups, they're like into hunting or fishing, and maybe they have these conversations about all that, talking about their favorite sports team, talking about their hobbies, talking about music, whatever it is. And you feel like you just don't fit in anywhere, like you're an outsider looking in. Does that ever feel familiar to you? Well, maybe you felt like you don't belong to any group of people. In the Garden of Eden, Adam, he had to look at each of the newly created animals as they walked by him, and he looked at them and he named them, and as he named all them, even in this huge group of all these animals that God had created, he never felt the feeling of belonging with them. He never had this sense of relationship with these animals. Here's the thing, the desire for belonging, I think even in Adam, it was hardwired into him. He was looking for a relationship with another human, another person, even God himself. And teens, I believe that teenagers feel this desire as well. Whether it's trying to fit in with a clique or finding your people, God has planted this desire for belonging, which is deep in our hearts. It's just, since creation, it's created in us. So loneliness isn't just a problem, it's like a signal that pushes us to seek out relationships. And not just with people, but with God himself. So in the book, Matt, he points it out this way, and he says that God, he wants our loneliness to drive us to seek a closer relationship with him. God, he created us relationships, but he also provides for our loneliness. Now, having great friends and a tight family connection and really close family, it can definitely help with loneliness, and you won't feel the loneliness as much. But those relationships are just gifts from God. And even if you've got a ton of friends, even if you answered no, I don't feel lonely on the homework last week, you might still feel like something's missing, like the Michael kid in the illustrations at the beginning. You might be in a crowd with lots of friends who love you, but you might still feel like something's missing. And this is why you can feel lonely in a crowd with tons of friends on social media, or even lots of likes and views and shares on your analytics. Loneliness, what it does is it points out the need for finding belonging. And specifically finding belonging in God. So back in Genesis, before sin messed things up, God creates Eve, and Adam and Eve are in this relationship in the garden with God. It says they walk together with God in the garden. There's this perfect communion, talking back and forth. And what did they do? They sinned. They ate the fruit, and that belonging, that connection, that relationship was marred. It was broken. When they sinned, they felt ashamed, and they hid themselves. They hid from God. That relationship connection was broken, and God didn't give up. God came and he was looking for them, and he said, "Where are you?" In Genesis 3, verse 9, the Lord God called unto Adam and said, "Where art thou?" Where are you, Adam? God went after them, and he's still chasing after them. He's still chasing after us as humans. So this fear of missing out, the FOMO that we talked about last time, this FOMO that we're going to miss out on something exciting, it isn't just about parties and social media and posts and things like that whenever you see something you missed. It's this cry for belonging. You're longing to belong to God himself. And God's not sitting back waiting for you to figure it all out. He's calling you. He's inviting you to come closer to him. There's this invitation to seek God. I want to close by looking at Psalm 27. Psalm 27, verse 8. This is where King David, he quotes God saying, "Seek my face." And that's God inviting us to get close to him. Like you'd invite a friend over to hang out. And David responds, and he says, "My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek." So even when David was lonely, betrayed, and abandoned, he went through a lot. He kept seeking after God, and God met him there. So instead of looking at loneliness as hopelessness or the bottom of a pit or the end of a road, the book says loneliness is a personal invitation from God. That's a game changer. So here we are. Loneliness isn't just pain, it's God's nudging you to find true belonging in him. So you remember those 3 teens at the beginning of the lesson with the same struggle. As they sat there, Madison's looking at her phone and doom scrolling, and Michael's hiding behind his smile. Monica's acting like she doesn't care, and they're all different. They're all lonely, though. And there's hope. God's inviting each of them, and he's inviting you to find your belonging, not in other people, but to find your belonging in him. So remember this, the next time that you feel lonely, you need to find your genuine belonging in your relationship with God. Many of you answered the question correctly. When you're lonely, pray. When you're lonely, run to the fellowship that God's given you at church. When you're lonely, go to the Word and listen to what God says. As we finish, I got some homework questions for you to answer before next week. And so do these things, and we'll talk about them next time. Do you relate to one of the teens in this lesson? If so, which one is most like you? And is there any particular group to which you've sought to belong? And then finally, what response will you make to God's invitation to seek my face? Well, that's all the time we have for today. So until next week, I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.